All right, yeah, we back with another video. Y'all know how we do. Always pushing health, wealth, better understanding the self, and giving praise to the Most High. So check this out. In this video, I'm going over how MLK mom got assassinated in church, right? So I was about to show y'all a video of this that I went over this last year, but I wanted to kind of give a refresher of how I feel like this situation kind of compares to the FBA situation. And I'm gonna explain y'all why. But first, make sure y'all hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and push me on the algorithm. I really appreciate that. And without further ado, let's get it. So I'm gonna go over this. This video is about hype. He's just going over the whole situation of Martin Luther King. Happy birthday to Martin Luther King, and for everything you did for the community, the culture in America. But I had some things that I was like, some things that I wasn't supportive of everything that Martin Luther King was doing, but I understand his heart at the end. I feel like he was tricked. He tried to do the right thing. So I still stand with MLK, even though I don't believe in everything that he did. But I'm gonna go over this video with hype. I'm gonna stop it and get my commentary so y'all can get my perspective, my point of view. And I want to know what y'all think in the comment section. So make sure you let me know.
The King family legacy is one that changed the course of history for Black people in America. It extends well beyond Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s untimely passing in 1968. It is a legacy that is marked by the pursuit of civil justice and peace in the nation. Unfortunately, the King family legacy is also tainted by wrongful deaths. 6 years after the assassination of one of the world's most esteemed leaders, Dr. King, his mother, Alberta Williams King, would suffer the same fate, dying at the hands of a gunman. The tragic incident led the world to wonder why anyone would seek to harm a family who has already experienced so much sorrow. Some would say the answer is religion, others, misguided anger. This is the untold true story of the assassination of Alberta Williams King and the Black Hebrew Israelite who took her life. Mrs. Alberta Williams King.
Now let me stop this there, right? That's why I wanted to show. I'm gonna let it play some more, but I want to show my video of what I did a year ago so y'all can understand where I was coming from. But it was an hour-long video. It was no way I can piece it. But let me explain this to you. They labeled this killer a Hebrew Israelite. Okay. And what I'm saying is we didn't have our newspapers didn't press this. It was from New York Times. So what I'm saying is they labeled this guy a radical extremist Israelite that killed a Black person. This is the first time and the only time that we have ever heard of an Israelite killing another Black person. Like we don't. This is not going on today. So this was like a one-off, is what they're trying to make us feel like, right? But to me, what I'm telling you is this is what I believe. All right. I believe that it was something called MK Ultra. I was about to do I got a book finished. I was about to drop on this. And it's called MK Ultra. And I think that's what they use on. This was an experiment they was using to see if they could use to take people out. And that's what I think this is. I think this has nothing to do with him being an Israelite. It's just they use it as a political game. And now people are reporting this to everybody saying, hey, the guy was a Hebrew Israelite. He was a radical, crazy Hebrew Israelite. Not to say now I don't trying to like support. I'm just saying that for them to say that it had an agenda. They had an agenda for them saying that because back then in 74, that wasn't the case. I don't think people was calling themselves then. But without further ado, let me let them rock.
King was born in 1903 in Atlanta, Georgia. She was the daughter of Jenny Celeste and Reverend A.D. Williams, the second pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta. The upstanding values her parents instilled in her, principles that she would pass down to her children, are the foundation for the historic legacy created by her second-born, Martin Luther King Jr. Mrs. King's life was deeply rooted in her faith and activism. Her father, husband, and both of her sons were all ministers at Ebenezer, where she played an integral role until she retired in 1972. The King matriarch would often return to lead the church in song. Ironically, Ebenezer Baptist Church, just a few blocks away from where her son Martin was buried 6 years prior, was where Mrs. Alberta Williams King took her last breath. Her death was classified as an assassination. The man who carried out the heinous act was 23-year-old Marcus Wayne Chenault. Born on June 30th, 1951 in Winchester, Kentucky, Marcus Wayne was described as a quiet child who read a lot. He was raised by his parents, Marcus H. and Hinda Lee Chenault. They were God-fearing and lived comfortably. That was until they moved to Dayton, Ohio, when Marcus, often called Wayne by his family, was a teenager. Hinda Lee, who was deeply religious, recalled to Washington Post. Up until 1967, he seemed to enjoy the church, but later he became a bit confused and started asking questions about different things in the Bible. As a student in high school, Chenault excelled academically. A school officer at Dayton Roth High School told Jet magazine, "He just went from homeroom to class. I never had any trouble with him. He was as good as gold." In 1969, Marcus was accepted into Ohio State University, and it was during his college matriculation that his demeanor began to change. Although he was still described as quiet and studious by his professors and peers, it was during this time that he began to reassess his traditional Christian values. Leon Vaughn, one of Chenault's Ohio State classmates, told Jet magazine, "Marcus was a really beautiful cat. He interpreted things to me like the Bible and the Star of David. The main thing he would say is that religion isn't for real because people couldn't be charged for the truth. He resented preachers riding around in Cadillacs. He said that parts of the New Testament were false and that King James stole literature from blacks and didn't give them any credit. He said King James was a Caucasian who based his interpretations on America's standards." His newfound religious ideals came from the teachings of his mentor, Hananiah Israel of Cincinnati. Hananiah, a spiritual teacher whose legal name is Stephen Hallman, spread messages from what he called a form of Judaism. Chenault met Hananiah about 8 months before the incident after.
Now, just to let y'all know, right? This is all coming from New York Times research. So sometimes some of our brothers, when we get information that comes from the enemies, we feel like, oh, this is true. And I feel like it was just political. It was a political agenda to this. It wasn't just what they're reporting from the New York Times, in my opinion, man. I hope y'all get it and understand where I'm coming from with this, but let me let it rock.
After seeing his advertisement titled, "What Every Negro Should Know About Scripture," in a magazine, Israel began instructing him in the Bible during meetings in which Chenault took lots of notes and often invited friends. Hananiah criticized black civil rights activists and church leaders as evil and deceptive. In his teachings, he wrote, "When you stop those lying preachers from deceiving you and your loved ones, from robbing them of millions of dollars a year, you will have a better economy." He also taught that black civil rights leaders were leading black people to doom. He told Dayton Daily News, "White men are being used by the Most High as a correcting rod, but God is going to do away with white people and free my people. When black people are freed, they will be the masters and whites will be the slaves. Until then, blacks should remain slaves to white men because."
So this is what he's saying that the guy who's teaching him is saying. But what my point is, we haven't seen this again. So why all of the murders and stuff that's happening, why aren't we seeing stuff like this all the time?
Because that is the role God has assigned to them. Although Israelites insisted that he did not advocate for violence, he taught that only the death of black ministers would free black people. He told Dayton Daily, "I gave Marcus the key to understanding the scriptures. He awakened from the death of sleep, from the grave of ignorance." Hananiah and Marcus, along with other young men who followed his teachings, were labeled by some as Black Hebrew Israelites, a religion of black people who believe that they are the descendants of the ancient Israelites. They incorporated
was labeled by some as Black Hebrew Israelites. Now, I thought the Hebrew Israelite movement came up in like the 80s. This was 74 when they saying all of this. Let's let them go. My bad, y'all.
Teachings from various sources, including certain aspects of Christianity and Judaism, and have created their own interpretation of the Bible. They are not associated with the mainstream Jewish community nor mainstream Christianity. Chenault and Israel assert that they did not belong to any organized group or following. Although Marcus Wayne recruited a number of young men from Ohio State and the surrounding areas to begin following his teachings, other classmates thought his religious talk was off-putting. We always thought he was a little weird, but there were a lot of weirdos on campus, Carol Peters told New York Times. She recalled having lunch with Chenault on occasion, but eventually began to avoid him. She said that he would get high and talk about the Bible at parties, and a party was no place to talk about the Bible, but he did, and people were turned off by it. By his junior year, Marcus dropped out of college.
So that he's saying the junior year, what I'm telling you guys is I said my experience when going to college in sophomore, they try to pledge you into fraternities and sororities. Did he join in any of them? Okay. Could he have been used as like they use our black people to kill our, just like I showed you on the video with Darhart Perry? He bombed all of the in the 60s. This happened 10 years later. So you mean to tell me it's no funny business going on with this? Let's go.
And began to focus on religion. He adapted a head honcho persona. His neighbors took note of the change, accompanied by him shouting obscenities and Muhammad Ali type rhymes out of his apartment window while blasting soul music. He wrote General Chenault with 4 stars on his mailbox and Servant Jacob on his apartment door. His antics led him to being arrested for disorderly conduct, which seemed to have pleased him. Chenault's neighbor, Richard Keish, recalled as a group of people who gathered for the spectacle that Chenault came out with his hands up saying things like, "No comment," putting his hands on the car to be searched even though no one asked him to. Keish also shared with Jet magazine that Chenault told him that he would soon be all over the newspapers and that he was going to Atlanta to meet destiny. On Friday, June 28, 1974, Marcus Wayne Chenault returned home for what seemed to be a routine visit. According to Marcus Sr., Wayne seemed as normal as ever. That night, Marcus stole 2 pistols from his father's bedroom. The next day, he bought a bus ticket to Atlanta, Georgia. After a 12-hour trip, Wayne had made it to his destination, where, according to a taxicab driver's testimony, he was picked up from the bus station and asked to be taken to Ebenezer Baptist Church. On the way, he asked the driver if Mr. and Mrs. King attended the church every Sunday. Later that morning, after being picked up from a motel, Marcus was taken back to the church. He was invited to attend men's Bible study. Marcus introduced himself and said he was from Ohio. According to witness testimony, once the service began, he was seen sitting in the Amen corner of the pews, which is normally reserved for the most devout worshipers. Mrs. King finished playing the Lord's Prayer on the organ, and as the congregation bowed their heads in prayer, they heard Marcus shout, "I'm taking over here this morning." They looked up to find him standing on the pew holding a gun. His first shot struck Mrs. King in the head and she fell over the organ. "It seemed like I was watching a scene from a bad movie play out," Christine King Ferris, Alberta's daughter, would recall in her 2009 memoir, Through It All. Marcus fired every round in his gun. He stood over Mrs. King and shot her again. He shot a deacon, Edward Boykin, and a church member, Jimmy Mitchell. Mrs. King's grandson, Derek, who said he helped to subdue the gunman as he tried to reload a pistol, told The Guardian. "He was delirious. He said over and over, 'The war did this to me. It's the war.'" As Marcus fled, the sanctuary was in chaos. Christine described, "There were people."
So he said the war did this to me. So guys, what I'm trying to just open y'all mind up to, it was a study. I was trying to put a book out about this. I'm gonna still put the book out. It's a drug called MK Ultra where they were doing experiments on mind control for war. Uh, Back in the war days, and they were using these guys. This was a black guy to use. They also used a white guy. His name ain't coming to mind right now. But what I'm saying is, this is what was used. They first started this experiment in 1951, and then in the 60s and the 70s, it was like people found out about some experiments that they were doing for black people and other people, and they kind of like disregarded it in 73. The next year, this is when Martin Luther King mom gets shot and killed. And then we never hear of them of this kind of behavior or anybody dying anymore. So let me know what y'all think in the comment section, man. What you think about this situation. Um, I just wanted to bring this up. It is MLK birthday today. Just wanted to show the conspiracy that was against him and everything that he went through. So happy MLK to everybody, man. Love and appreciate y'all. I'm going live tonight with Trev Jackson. 9:30. Y'all check us out. Call in. I'll catch y'all in the next video. Peace and love.
You are totally dependent on other people to take care of your needs because you don't have those roots sunk into the ground. To have a community, you must have three things to have a community in it. You must have a wholly independent economic structure that can provide goods, service, products, and things for your own people, and jobs and tax bases for your own people. You should at least control four basic things. You should be trying to control water, food, medicine, and energy to be able to survive.
Here we got Mr. Pollock. He had a cornfield. He took advantage of a free water test from us, and this is what we found in this water. We found sulfur, we found hardness, and we solved these problems with an easy fix of 2 tanks. So get your free water test today. Stay blessed. Click the link below.